Hey there guys, Raj here, hope you guys are doing well. Today's video I'm going to be talking about 4 fragrances, so not going to be doing a full review, but basically I've tried these fragrances a handful of times, so I thought now would be a good time to give my just initial impressions. So not going to talk about the notes in too much detail or performance or things like that. Just the first sort of things that come to my mind. So the 4 fragrances I'm going to be talking about today. One is from Ermenegildo Zegna's Essenze collection. This is Italian Bergamot. One from 4160 Tuesdays called the Dark Heart of Old Havana. I think that's the first time I'm talking about this brand on my channel. Serge Lutens, a brand that I haven't spoken about in a while. This one is called La Religieuse. And again, another brand I think I'm talking about for the first time. This one is called Fragrance du Bois, and this is called Parisian Oud. So, to kick things off with the Zegna, so high-end luxury men's Italian fashion house, and they also have a luxury fragrance line called the Essenze collection, which comes in bottles like these. I've probably actually gone through about just over half of this sample and have tried it a few other times in duty free, so I do kind of know the fragrance, this one, more than the others. This one, what this brand or what this line does is it focuses on one ingredient, and Zegna have their own bergamot vineyard or farm or whatever you would call it, or space where they harvest the bergamot, which they use exclusively for themselves. The bergamot is really nice. It's zingy, it's crisp, it's a little bit sharp, there's a bitterness in there, slightly watery. It's it's a really good example of what bergamot can smell like. It doesn't have much else going on, if anything at all, to be honest. And it doesn't have that juiciness that I like from Sicilian Mandarin, which is another one in this collection. But it smells nice. It's a really good spring and summer fragrance. They also have another one, not in this line, but still by Zegna, called Acqua di Bergamotto, I think that's the name, which is a much cheaper version and also does a really good job of showing what a bergamot can smell like. But this one is like kind of a little bit better, but a lot more expensive. So I'm not so sure, but whether this one is like the one to go for, whether you go for the Acqua di Bergamotto one, I don't know. This one definitely does have a more authentic, the bergamot smells better, but the other one that I mentioned also smells really good. So worth checking out both, actually. So I got these, oh, and by the way, these samples, how I get these samples, the Zegna, a sales associate gave them to me. This one, which I got from Essenze, which is the perfumery company here in London. They also have a website. You can go into the store, you don't even have to buy anything, and they'll give you 4 free samples. The Serge Lutens one was a sales assistant, and this one, the Fragrance du Bois one, I got from Bois store in Paris, and again they give you free samples. You don't even have to buy anything, which is quite cool. So 4160 Tuesday, set up by Sarah McCartney, a brand that I just, when I went into Essenze, wanted to try out. Tried a few of them on paper. I'm not 100% sure whether I like them or not. I wasn't sure about the ingredients, whether they were to my liking. But this one kind of stood out for me on paper. And obviously you've got to test it on skin. It's the best way to do the fragrance justice. And also the name really stood out for me. I've been to Havana in Cuba, so it kind of stood out. The fragrance though, I've tried it a couple of times, and it has a kind of sweet tobacco-iness and aromatic sweet tobacco note in there, which is actually quite nice. Nothing too strong. It's joined by what I would describe as a kind of bonbon. Like, you get these balls and they're covered in like a white powdery, sugary coated, whatever that is. You're going to get a little bit of that kind of vanilla-ness in there. It borders on being a little bit sickly sweet, and I don't think the name really lives up to what the fragrance smells like the dark heart. I'm expecting maybe a more intense tobacco, maybe some rum, maybe I don't know what else, some woody elements in there. It doesn't really go down that way. It smells quite flat and a little bit cheap on my skin, to be honest. But as I said, you've got to try out these fragrances. This is just my initial impressions. So going on to the third fragrance from Serge Lutens, a brand that over the years I've mentioned many times on my channel. I've had several bottles. It's a brand that I really respect. Don't have anything from them at the moment and haven't explored anything from the brand in a while, but I managed to get my hands on this one called La Religieuse, and this is an interesting fragrance. It's actually, it's the notes there are quite dark, but the performance overall is, so far, feels quite light. I get like a really strong kind of like floral aspect, which smells like Oris Noir from Ormond Jane. It also reminds me of Champaca Absolute by Tom Ford. So you get that deep floral notes in there, but there is also a slightly smokiness in there as well. I don't really know what the ingredients or what the notes are, but that's pretty much what I get. It does seem to fade away quite quickly, but I don't know, maybe I need to spray this on a little bit more. It's an interesting fragrance, but I'm not sure it's a standout in the Serge Lutens line, but it's an interesting one, I think. Okay, so when I was in Paris, as I mentioned, I went into the Bois store. Must check this out if you're ever in Paris. They also have a couple of other stores in the UAE region, or the Gulf region, I believe, and also they have one here in London in the Mayfair area. But I haven't checked it out at all yet. So when I was in Paris, I thought, well, let me get the fragrance called Parisian Oud, which I thought was an interesting name actually, and the fragrance kind of, I see why they would call it that, because it's not a heavy, skanky oud. It's freshened up. It's a light, spicy, woody fragrance, which has what I perceive as a real authentic oud note in there as well. It's an expensive fragrance though. It's almost 700 euros for 100 ml, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And I kind of feel like the price, take that out of the equation, and it's a really nice fragrance. Light and spicy and very, very woody. It kind of gives me the feeling of what Creed's Royal Oud should have smelt like. This is like Creed's Royal Oud without those pencil shaving notes, but with an actual genuine oud coming through a lot more. Yeah, it's almost peppery in some ways. It's actually really nice. I think it's a very nice, masculine, quite approachable fragrance. It's not, some ouds can be quite overwhelming for some people, but this one I think could be worn by a lot of men. I think a lot of men would wear this, but the price is, I don't really see why it's priced at this level, but I'm going to test it out a lot more. So guys, let me know what you think. Have you tried these fragrances, or you know, anything else from these brands that I've mentioned? Let me know your thoughts. Check out my Instagram page. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye.